WWE was in Paris for the final PLE here in the month of August. The final PLE on Peacock. 30,000 fans in the La Defense Arena. The all-time gate record, they said. They announced this during the show, and everybody cheered because we set the all-time gate record. These are very expensive tickets. Apparently everybody was very happy about that. That will never get old. That will never get old. Nothing like bragging about how much money you charge people, and when you set the all-time gate record, they all cheer you for it. But that's what we got here tonight. Now, they were also on Peacock for the final time for a main roster PLE. The NXT shows will be continuing on Peacock, if you did not know. From now on, it's on to ESPN, starting with WrestlePalooza in a few weeks. And tonight in the main event, without anybody out there to help him, Paul Heyman taken out. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed banned from the building. Seth Rollins was all by himself, defending the World Heavyweight Championship in a fatal four-way match against CM Punk, LA Knight, and Jey Uso. He was going to go it alone, except he didn't. And the big reveal at the end of the show, because there were some murmurs going on about them maybe having some kind of big reveal or some kind of big angle here for the end of the show. I tried to stay away from that. But I saw that was floating around. Turned out to be Becky Lynch, dressed like a ninja. Remember years ago when we had this influx of ninjas in WWE? Everybody dressing up like a ninja. The ninja tonight turned out to be Becky Lynch. Coming to her husband's aid, Seth Rollins stomps CM Punk. I've lost track of how many times he has stomped this man's face into the ground. Going back to the beginning of the year, it's happened a lot. And he pins CM Punk to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. You know, I don't hate pairing Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins together on TV. I don't. You know, there was a time many years ago when Vince McMahon put them together on TV as baby faces, and it was an absolute fail. Seriously, it did not work. It made Becky, who was this cool character at the time, just made her so uncool. This is different, though. Now they're both heels. Becky has been very entertaining largely since coming back and going heel in this Intercontinental title run that she's been on. So I don't know if the idea is to keep them together as a permanent pairing. If Becky Lynch is now officially a member of the Vision, we don't know that. It could have just been a one-night only thing because Seth had nobody else. And so his wife came to the rescue here. I suspect that we will get them on television for a while. I don't think it's a one-night thing. But whether or not that makes her an official member of the Vision or not, you know, I hope so. I actually hope so. I think getting a female voice in there is not a bad idea. Becky is the most obvious person in that spot. So I didn't mind that so much. Outside of what happened there at the end, that being the most newsworthy element of the match, the main event didn't do anything for me. You know what did, though? John Cena and Logan Paul. Because couple weeks ago on SmackDown, John Cena went out there on TV and he cut the best promo of his entire retirement run. I mean, he went out there and he put over Logan Paul, but he also laced into him. And like a surgeon, you know, with a scalpel, and he was taking him apart piece by piece in a way that we haven't seen John Cena do on the mic in a very long time. And then on SmackDown this week, he had another very strong promo, not as good as the week before, but it was the promo work that really got me invested in this match, as invested as I could be in a John Cena-Logan Paul match. And then these two guys went out there for 26 minutes, and they threw everything at each other that they could possibly throw. They stole every move that they possibly could from other people that John Cena has wrestled, wrestlers in other companies. I mean, that's a Logan Paul thing anyway. They threw everything at each other for 26 minutes. I will say it hit me when the match was over. John Cena just wrapped up the month of August with the two best matches of his entire retirement run so far. One of which was a 37-minute banger with Cody Rhodes. The other one was a 26-minute match here on this show with Logan Paul. Now imagine if we would have gotten this John Cena instead of what we got with that failed heel run for 5 months. Almost half of John Cena's retirement year feels like it was wasted. But in the month of August here, we got 2 matches that John Cena was able to go out there and almost turn back the hands of time and show that, you know what, he's not totally washed. You know, he still may not be the John Cena of 2015. That was 10 years ago. I'm not saying he's that same guy. He isn't. And he hasn't been for a while. But there was a period of time there, especially during the early part of the heel run, where it just looked like John Cena had regressed so much that unless he was in the ring with somebody who was going to be able to go out there and really just carry the load, does he even have it in him to have a singles match that long? 37 minutes, 26 minutes. If you would have told me that a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that John Cena is going to go out there and have matches that are that long, believe me, those would have been the last matches on the card that I would have been looking forward to seeing. I'm like, what are you, out of your mind? You're going to send John Cena out there in a singles match for 26 minutes? But he's proven a lot of people wrong this month. And a lot of it does come down to who he's in the ring with. Cody Rhodes did a great job in their match together at SummerSlam. Logan Paul carried his end of the bargain, did a great job in this match as well, just like he did earlier in the month at SummerSlam in the tag team match. When he beat Jelly Roll, who was there tonight. Jelly Roll was there in the front row. The John Cena-Logan Paul match was the match of the night. The second best match of the night belongs to Sheamus and Rusev, who had a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. I applaud both men for at least getting a PLE spot. I mean, they couldn't get a PLE match if they would have held Triple H at gunpoint, but they got one here and they made the most of it. We also had Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella, which was the exact opposite of what we got in those 2 matches. It was easily the worst thing on the entire show. And then we had the WWE Tag Team titles were on the line. We had Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed. They had a match, Roman trying to get his shoes back. And it was all to build to a big injury angle when the match was over because Roman has to go film Street Fighter. He's got to go away for a while. In fact, he's going to be gone basically the entire month of September. I think his last day of filming is supposed to be September 26th. So this was their way of sending him on his way by having him destroyed by Seth's goons and do a stretcher job. And he was taken out of the building. So that's how that ended there. This was a 2-match show. Cena and Logan and the good old-fashioned Donnybrook. And the rest was pretty average stuff. It was newsworthy for the little twist at the end there with Becky Lynch, which is going to get a lot of people, rightfully. Makes sense, right? Talking about the potential for an AJ Lee return. People have been asking me about AJ Lee for the last couple of years, since Punk came back. Is she coming back? Is she going to be in the Rumble? Is she going to be at Evolution? I've gotten so many questions. I've seen so many tweets online about AJ Lee over the last few years, and it never happens. You know, it never comes to fruition. This is the first time where there's a built-in storyline just ready and waiting that makes all the sense in the world for her to be there. I don't know if she is or not. If you were to ask me, do I think this is where she comes in? I think it is. But anybody who tells you they know for sure until it gets reported by a reputable outlet is lying to you. They don't know for sure. Because if she really, truly wanted to come back, she would have been back by now. But boy, based on what they did here on this show, it sure feels like there's a mixed tag team match just waiting right there. It's ready and waiting. All they need is the high sign and the green light from AJ Lee that she's ready to come on in. And we'll talk about things that happened and what was said in the main event by Seth Rollins that seems to indicate that that's probably what we're going to get. But again, outside of those 2 matches and a couple of newsworthy things with the Roman injury angle and the Becky stuff at the end, not a show that you really need to go out of your way to see. Pretty average stuff otherwise. And so ends the Peacock era when it comes to these shows. And the Peacock era doesn't really go out with a whimper. It doesn't really go out with a bang. If I had to describe it, it goes out with more of a shoulder shrug. This is your Clash in Paris 2025 review. I am the Solomonster. It is the final day of August. It is Sunday, August 31st, 2025. I am the Solomonster. Thank you for hanging out with me here on a Sunday. Usually it's Sound Off Sunday. Podcast went up a day early because of this show. Back-to-back weekends of Sunday afternoon pay-per-views. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. We do have a goal going in the chat if we want to do potentially a bonus round of Be the Booker. To get Be the Booker, we need at least 400 likes here on the stream, so hit that thumbs up. I did mention also Super Chats are open. If your messages come on in, I'll be reading those a little bit later on. I mentioned the sound off went up a day early. One of the things talked about on the show, very interesting question that was submitted as part of the mailbag. Is Roman Reigns a hypocrite for saying in a recent interview with Stephanie McMahon that it was easier to get over as a top star in the Attitude Era? That it's a lot harder today to get over as a top star in WWE? It's a very interesting question. I talked about that. That's one of many things covered on episode 927, which we have not had the chance to listen to yet. You can do so when we are done here with this review. So let's get into it here. They were in Paris, France. They had a custom Eiffel Tower. It's rare these days outside of WrestleMania that you get any kind of custom stage design. It's just, everything is just so bland and there's just a sameness to it all. They don't put the same level of effort. And, obviously I'm sure it cost them a pretty penny to put these together, but you just don't see that effort being put in much anymore. So I can appreciate it. And I want to call it out when they do it because I think it's really cool. And I wish it's something they would do more of. When they do some kind of custom element for the sets, especially if it ties into the location. And they did that here. They had a custom Eiffel Tower entranceway for the talent when they walked out to the ring. Again, I will be first in line to lobby for custom entrances here for these shows. Custom sets. They opened with Roman Reigns jerking the curtain here on this show. But I mean, obviously for what happened in the main event, it kind of had to happen this way. One-on-one with Bronson Reed, or as they call it, the Tribal Chief against the Tribal Thief. Roman coming out, got that megastar reaction, as you would expect. They sang to him. They showed Jelly Roll, Post Malone. They were sitting in the front row, right behind the announcers. So early in the match, Roman lifted Reed up on his shoulders, almost, like in a Samoan drop position. But he did so very slowly, couldn't support his weight, collapsed under the weight. Bronson Reed has actually slimmed down quite a bit. I'm not saying he's not a big guy anymore, but he actually has slimmed down noticeably. So outside the ring, Reed slammed Roman onto the announce desk. Reigns bounced back. He cleared off the table. Reed, though, clotheslined him before he could do anything. Back in the ring, Reigns ran at Reed. Reed, though, caught him and hit a World's Strongest Slam. So then Reed worked an always exciting chinlock for a while. Roman worked out of it. Reed, though, caught him with a Samoan drop. Paul Heyman was out there. I should point out that Paul Heyman was out there. He had the Shula Fala around his neck. So, Braun Breaker was nowhere to be found. But Paul Heyman hands Reed the Shula Fala. And Reed is posing inside the ring with it. He tried to take off Roman's shoe. Reigns, though, kicked him away. Roman eventually clotheslined Reed over the top rope and out to the floor. Reigns landed a drive-by. Then he threw Reed into the ring steps. Back inside, Roman set up for a Superman punch. Reed, though, caught him. Slammed him before he could hit, before hitting a running senton. So Reed lifted him up. Roman, though, elbowed his way out of it, rolled Reed up for a near fall. Roman went for another Superman punch, and Bronson caught him, countered into a Death Valley driver for a 2 count. With Reigns on the outside now, Reed went for a dive. Before he could actually dive through the ropes, though, Roman caught him with a punch. I think it was a Superman punch. Reigns followed that up with a proper Superman punch, but it was only good enough for a 2 count. Reigns went for a spear. Reed caught him, dispatched him to the outside, where Reed did finally hit a suicide dive. Back inside, Reed went for a tsunami splash. Roman moved out of the way. Roman went for a spear. Reed caught him. I love how he just literally just stopped him. Like, Roman is coming in for the spear, and Reed just stops him, dead in his tracks, and delivers a sit-out power bomb for a good near fall. Reed went to the top. Roman cut him off with a punch, and Roman followed up with a Superman punch and a Samoan drop from the middle rope. And then all it took was one. Reigns hits a spear, and he gets the 3 count. Roman Reigns defeats Bronson Reed. Little over 20 minutes in. They had a solid match. it was elevated by the crowd, and the crowd was really the third man, as they call it, for the entire night. There was stuff on this show they were quiet for. We'll talk about that women's match here in a little bit. But the crowd was as animated all night as you would expect them to be. They were doing their chants, they were singing, they were having a good time. So when you have a hot crowd like that, it can take a good match and elevate it to a very good match. It could take a solid match and elevate it to a pretty good match. And that's kind of how I felt about this match here. It was solid. I've seen both have more exciting matches and be part of more exciting matches, but the crowd helped elevate it a little bit more. Here's the thing about Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns has become a master at getting the most out of the bare minimum with what he does. He really doesn't do anything out of the ordinary. He doesn't really take any risks beyond the normal risks that you would see him take in the course of a match. And he just knows how to milk a reaction. This is what Hogan became a master of. It's like when you would see Hogan go to Japan, he was working a totally different style because he knew it was a different audience. But in front of the audience here, he knew the kind of match that people were looking for. So he could do more, but he didn't have to. He can get away with doing only what he needed to do. And in his own way, that's what Roman Reigns, after all these years, has mastered. He only needs to do what he needs to do. And he will get a reaction no matter what, because they were cheering and chanting and singing for him the entire time here in this match. The match itself, it had a very deliberate pace. It made it very slow in parts. I wouldn't say it was ever boring. I think deliberate is a good word for it. But the real story came after the match. It wasn't even the match itself. It's what happened afterwards. Reigns was posing on top of the announce desk outside. And Paul Heyman is in the ring, and he's kneeling down, and he's tending to Bronson Reed. And Roman turns around, and he sees it. So he goes back into the ring, and he's stalking Paul Heyman. Heyman doesn't realize that he's in the ring until he does, until he turns around, and then he sees Roman. And now he is begging for his life. He's begging, he's pleading, he's all terrified, and he's screaming, "I love you, my tribal chief." Heyman then acknowledges Roman, and he removes the Shula Fala from his neck, and he hands the Shula Fala to Roman Reigns, who accepts it and then raises it into the air, and everybody cheers. Roman then drops it. He grabs Heyman, and he locks him in the guillotine. And he's cinching it in, and Heyman is flailing, and he's tapping, and he's flailing, and and at the very end, he goes limp, and Roman lets him go, and Heyman falls to the mat. So Roman goes back outside the ring on the announce desk. He's got the Shula Fala, and the timekeeper, Berkeley Ottman, the son of the Shockmaster. He's been timekeeper in WWE for many years now. He comes over with a pair of scissors. He's cutting the laces. So you should have kept them together. You could have put that in like a Hall of Fame one day. If they ever actually have a physical Hall of Fame, you could put it in the Hall of Fame. But he cut the laces. Roman then gets a Sharpie. He begins signing each shoe, and he's throwing them out to the crowd. And I think he only threw 2 of the shoes out before Braun Breaker appeared. And the way they did this is the camera, we didn't see Braun Breaker until all of a sudden the camera just pans over. And Braun Breaker is standing there. He's on the timekeeper's barricade. Now he's over standing on the French announce desk, because you had the English announce desk. And then to the left of the English announce desk, if you're facing the ring, is the French announce desk. Braun Breaker is standing there. He's measuring Roman, and he dives from that table to the English announce desk, and he spears Roman through the announce desk. Thankfully, it broke, because these tables now are reinforced. They don't break as easily as they used to, but this table did break. So they go crashing through the desk. They show Jelly Roll standing there in the front row. He's like, "Oh my God," he's looking all concerned. Thankfully, he stayed right where he was. He didn't involve himself. He was smart enough not to involve himself here. Breaker went into the ring, and along with Bronson Reed, they helped Paul Heyman to his feet. So the heels were leaving, and Roman is being tended to. Eventually, Roman got back to his feet. He's favoring his ribs, but he doesn't want any help. He's going to leave on his own power. And he walks, and he makes it as far as the head of the aisleway before he could even really start going down the aisle, Bron Breakker sees this, and from about 20 feet away, Bron Breakker gets a nice running head start here, and he sprints down the aisle, and he spears Roman for a second time. Spears him right down to the ground. So the heels roll Reigns back into the ring. Bronson Reed heads up top, and he hits a tsunami splash to Roman Reigns. More officials come pouring out. Hurricane Helms is out there. Jason Jordan is out there. I think Adam Pearce might have been out there. There's a whole bunch of officials out there. So they bring out a stretcher for Roman. And with Roman now strapped to the gurney, Reed runs back down to the ring. He goes up top. Roman now is completely defenseless because he is strapped to this board and he has nowhere to go. Can't even get his hands up or anything. And Bronson Reed comes flying off with a second tsunami splash. And I'm watching all of this play out because this has been going on for a while now. And I'm like, I know Roman's got family in the building, but boy, it would sure be a good time for them to be out here to come to this man's aid. So he gets squashed for a second time. And then finally, after much delay, Jey Uso finally shows up. I guess he was busy yeeting himself elsewhere in the building. Jey Uso finally shows up to assist his cousin. He fights off the heels until the heels then got back in the ring. And Bron Breakker speared Jey Uso. Bronson Reed also went back up top. He hit a third tsunami splash to Roman Reigns, who was still strapped to the board. And finally, they were able to get the heels out of there. And Roman Reigns was flattened like a pancake. And eventually he was stretchered out. The post-match angle lasted almost as long as the fucking match. I said the match went about 20 minutes. This whole post-match angle went just about 15 minutes. So when you tally it all up, we didn't even get to the second match of this show until the beginning of hour 2, which is completely ridiculous. But part of that is also the first match didn't actually start until we were about 20 minutes into the show. So that entire first hour of this PLE was just gone at that point. It is inexplicable that it took Jey Uso that long when he saw what was going after the first spear on the table, that it took him that long to make his way out to help his cousin out. The angle itself, not really surprising. I didn't know if they were going to do it on this show or on Raw this Monday. I believe he begins filming on Tuesday. So it was going to be a little dicey whether or not he'd even be able to be on the show on Monday. I believe he's filming for Street Fighter in Australia. So if they were going to do something, it had to be on this show. That was not surprising. And as an angle, I thought it was a fine way to write him off. I personally think it would have meant more to give Bronson Reed the win here. In the big picture, it's not going to hurt Bronson Reed. It's not really going to end up being that big of a deal. But, you know, Roman could have gotten his shoes back and you could have shot the exact same angle after he lost the match. Everything else could have played out exactly the way it did, but it would have been huge, you know, for Bronson Reed to get a win here. And they opted not to do that. Part of the reason may have been because, you know, Seth Rollins was going to win at the end of the show. So maybe they wanted to give the fans a babyface win here at the beginning. That's always possible. Again, the loss doesn't hurt Bronson Reed. He took the majority of the match, got his heat back with the angle when it was over, 3 tsunami splashes. So I thought it was still very effective. In the back after, Adam Pearce was livid, talking to Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. And he also informed them, well, first he ejected them, kicked them out of the building, but he informed them that Roman had been taken to the hospital. And they're like, well, what about Heyman? Who cares about him? What about Paul Heyman? And Pearce said, well, you guys can join him. And they weren't very happy about this because they said Seth Rollins still has a match. We're not going nowhere. Seth Rollins has a match later in the show. And Pearce said, if I even so much as smell you coming back to the building, you will both be suspended indefinitely without pay. So this is how they set things up for the main event. Heyman's gone. Breakker and Reed are gone. Seth is going into this main event against 3 other guys with nobody there to help him and watch his back. So that was the purpose of this opening the show, so they could set things up for the main event at the very end. Now we had the Wyatt 6, after this. Joe Gacy and Dexter Lumis defending the WWE Tag Team titles against the Street Profits. Angelo Dawkins put his arm out to stop Montez Ford from starting the match. I got this. He wanted to start the match. Okay, so he let him start the match. Meanwhile, Montez Ford ended up tagging himself in after Dawkins' initial exchange with Dexter Lumis didn't really go too well. And Angelo Dawkins did not look very happy about this at all. He was like, okay, all right, fam. And he got back out on the apron. So I'm watching this going, uh-oh, where'd this come from? The Wyatts worked over Ford for a while until Dawkins made a hot tag back into the match. Dawkins ran wild. He hit Joe Gacy with a senton bomb. Profits hit Gacy with an electric chair drop / blockbuster combo. Dexter broke up the cover. Ford missed a frog splash, which led to a messed up spot. Gacy went to go use Lumis as a weapon. Ford just fell down before being hit, so Gacy dropped Lumis on top of him. Dawkins tackled Gacy into the barricade outside, and then he became distracted when Eric Rowan walked over. And the two of them were looking at each other, and that gave Lumis an opportunity to just charge in, tackle Dawkins over the barricade. Montez Ford then wiped out Lumis and Rowan with his dive out over the ring post. Now, he went to go get back in the ring, and hiding underneath the ring, poking her head out, is Nikki Cross. And Nikki Cross grabs a hold of Montez Ford's leg, so he can't get back in the ring. The referee is distracted. He's on the other side of the ring, tending to something, doesn't see what's going on here. Uncle Howdy comes over, grabs Montez Ford, gives him Sister Abigail on the floor. So Ford is laid out. So they put Ford back in the ring. Gacy and Lumis give him a combo sit-out powerbomb, neck breaker. They call it the Plague, and they got the win. So the Wyatt Six retain the tag team titles here. Solid stuff. I mean, no real downtime like we had in the opening match. There were moments where it was, a chin lock here and there. This was basically a sprint for a good 10 or 11 minutes or so. I think this would have been a fine television match on SmackDown. This was the first time where the Wyatts, I feel like, were really treated like heels. Yeah, Nikki Cross getting involved there at the end. Uncle Howdy gets involved blatantly, right? Lays out Montez Ford on the floor. So it certainly felt like a heel move here at the end of this. The tension, though, between Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford, it felt so manufactured. They did nothing to set it up. All we had to set this up was just a very brief few lines from Bo Dallas on Friday, where he saw them in the back and he made a mention of them like, are you really brothers? You're like, basically, you're not family like us. And when we beat you, you'll see, whether or not you two are really family or not, right? It was something to that effect. That was it. It's not as if that there's been this overt effort on television over the last several weeks to build up tension. Like they've been telling some kind of a story between Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. By and large, everything's been fine. All of a sudden, you see that tension there at the beginning of the match, and I'm like, where the hell did this come from? It just felt so forced to me. It felt very manufactured. That all of a sudden they're teasing a Street Profits breakup when they've really done nothing to really build up to it. But they sure wanted you to feel like, okay, we could be heading in this direction soon. It made me also remember on the pre-show Big E. Before they went on the air here with the main card, Big E made a comment about how this match is basically a must-win for the Street Profits. If they don't win this match, he basically was saying, I don't know where they go from here. So they're definitely teasing a new direction for the Street Profits. It could very well result in a breakup. Again, there's been some start and stop storytelling in the past that kind of gave you the indication they might be going down that road, and then they pulled back or they swerved you and they went a different way. I've been waiting for a Montez Ford singles push for a couple of years now. There was a brief window in, I guess it was 2 years ago, right? Heading into WrestleMania 39. That was the year that Ford was in the Elimination Chamber match for the U.S. title, where I really thought, okay, this looks like they're going to move forward with it. And then they didn't. It was completely dropped. It was completely abandoned. So I have no idea. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, okay, Triple H is finally going to do it, because Triple H has sort of dangled that carrot before and then pulled back. I don't know if he's going to do it or not. It seems like that could be the direction here. I will believe it when I see it, because I feel the same way that Big E did on the pre-show when he's like, I don't know where these guys go from here. They've been tag team champions. They didn't have the belts for very long. Now they had an opportunity to get them back. They failed. Short of moving them over to the tag team division on Raw, which could really use the help right now, I don't know what else you do with these two. It's like running on the hamster wheel. It took them years just to win the belts back again. They went 4 years between tag team title reigns. And this was as forgettable a reign as you will ever see. What is the end goal here? I think Angelo Dawkins as well. There could be a singles push in it for him. He's been very impressive in some of these matches. But Montez Ford, I think, is where the money is. If you had to put money down as a singles on one or the other, my money is on Montez Ford. My money is on a Montez Ford Bianca Belair pairing. A Montez Ford Bianca Belair heel pairing at some point down the road. I've always felt that way. But every year that goes by, it just makes me wonder if they're ever going to actually pull the trigger and do it. May as well. Because like Big E said, I don't know where you go with these guys from here. I really don't. Now up next, we had Becky Lynch defending the Women's Intercontinental Championship against Nikki Bella. Noticeable boos. Nothing overwhelming like Logan Paul. Noticeable boos, though, for Nikki Bella when she came out. Cheers. Noticeable cheers, especially at the end when she won for Becky Lynch. So that was interesting. Not surprising, but interesting. Nikki came at her with a fury right out of the gate. So Becky retreated to the outside. Nikki went for a sliding drop kick through the ropes to the floor. Becky had moved out of the way. So Nikki just didn't even land on her feet. She landed on the ground. She crashed and burned. Back inside, Becky landed a leg drop from the top rope for a 2 count. There was a spot outside the ring a few minutes into this where Nikki started slamming Becky. It was supposed to be face first repeatedly, over and over again into the announce desk, right? Top part of the announce desk. And I should say that she was ramming her hands first into the announce desk. They really should have switched to a different camera angle for this, because all you saw was Becky, her hands were going into the announce desk, and it just looked really bad. They should have shot this a little bit differently. Then there was a very embarrassing spot where Nikki went for a disaster kick. Like she was Cody Rhodes, not from like the center part of the rope. She went to the corner, but she came off the middle rope with her version of a disaster kick. And she went for it before bothering to see if Becky was in position. Now, she did initially turn around to just kind of take stock of where Becky was. And Becky was not in the position that you would have wanted her to be in. Nikki turns back around and she goes through with the kick. I guess expecting that Becky was going to be there. But she wasn't, and she didn't bother checking. So she goes and throws this kick. The only thing is, she turns around, there ain't nobody there. There's nobody there. She threw a kick at John Cena. And Becky, what made it even worse, you can't even say it was a glancing blow. Like, it did not connect. But Becky, in the moment, stumbled. Like, she was like, oh, I got to sell this. And then she quickly realized, okay, this looked terrible. I'm not going to sell this. But initially she kind of did. It was terrible. Like she wasn't even in the neighborhood. So that looked very bad. Nikki briefly sold leg pain. I'll bet her ego hurt more than her leg did. Nikki went for the rack attack. Becky worked out of it. And Nikki ran at Becky. Becky moved. Nikki went to the apron. So Nikki went to the top rope. Becky cut her off, landed a superplex from the second rope for a 2 count. Bella went to the Fearless Lock, which she had used earlier in the match. She went back to her Fearless Lock, Nikki, though, got to the ropes, or Becky did rather, broke the hold. So the action spilled outside. Becky dismantled the ring steps. She tried to lift Nikki up. Nikki, though, fought back and ended up hitting a Bella Buster on the flat part of the ring steps. Back inside, Nikki hit Becky with her own manhandle slam for a near fall. Nikki then tried for a disarm her. Becky slipped out, did a variation of the same finish that she used. I want to say it was it Backlash? Whatever it was back in May. She used a variation of the same finish that she won with in her triple threat match with Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. Only this was not as smooth. Basically a backslide. And she got a backslide and she won with it. Now that was a great finish a few months ago. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't as good as that finish was. But it was effective. And she won with it. And she retains the Intercontinental title. And I said this, I tweeted this out when the match was over. I said, well, that was certainly a match that happened. I'll even go as far as to say it was the best women's match on the entire show. That's about the nicest thing I could say about this match. Man, boy, I sure wish we had that Stephanie Vicaire match on this show. It's really a shame we didn't get that. This was nowhere near the level of the matches, for the most part, that Becky had with Lyra Valkyria outside of their SummerSlam match, which wasn't very good. This was the worst match, though, of Becky's run so far since she came back and since she won the Intercontinental title. She tried to make something out of this. They just weren't on the same page for most of it. It just didn't feel like they were in sync together. The way they did the finish, they may be tempted to run this back again. I'm sure these two would love to go back out and have a second crack at it. Try to have a better match. If they insist on doing this match again, and I don't think there's a single person out there who is asking for a rematch here, but if they are going to do a rematch, you could do it on TV. This would be the perfect time to use their go-to stipulation with all the plunder and all the weapons and the kendo sticks, and do a match like that, like a no DQ match. So they at least have the bells and whistles that they can rely on. I don't have any interest in seeing this run back with any stipulation, but if they're going to do it, I think that would be the way to go about doing it. And the thing with Nikki Bella, outside of that one terrible botch, it wasn't as if, outside of that one botch, it was a great match. No, it wasn't a great match. It was the weakest match on the entire show. And one of the worst matches that Becky has had all year, if not the worst. The thing with Nikki Bella, though, it's not that Nikki is awful. She's always terrible. She can't wrestle, right? It's not that. When Nikki was the Divas champion, okay, when she was on top back in her day, she was average at best compared to the quality of the women that we are used to seeing now in WWE. When you talk about Becky and Lyra and Charlotte and Rhea and Bianca and Io and Asuka and on and on and on, the quality is just so far superior to what Nikki was working with, and frankly, Nikki herself, even when she was in her prime and the longest reigning Divas champion of all time and all of that stuff, she was still average at best compared to what we see today. So now she comes back, and I know everybody is singing her praises and how revolutionary she was and all of this and blah, blah, blah. We hear it in every single promo. But again, they build her up to be something that she really isn't. And I'm not saying she can't go out there and have a good match or a solid match, but this was certainly not it. I'm left even wondering how we even got to this point, because part of the issue also, this is absolutely part of it. She has had one other singles match this entire year. Since she came back at the Royal Rumble, the only other singles match that this woman has had was a Raw match against Chelsea Green like 6 weeks ago. So ring rust and her, lack of matches of any kind, tag, singles, or anything, I'm sure played a role in this. She's not getting the reps in. She's not wrestling on a regular basis. She's not even wrestling on a part-time basis. And so that's going to play a role as well. And all of that conspired to give you what you saw here on this show tonight. There are much better opponents for Becky to be in the ring working with. One of those names is the name that I just mentioned a little while ago, which is Stephanie Vaquer. Now, we should find out tomorrow what their big solution is to this women's championship vacancy. They delayed it another week, so we have to find out tomorrow. Based on what Adam Pearce was saying, it sounds like it's one name. He was just trying to work out the details. I hope it is just one name, whoever that name is going to be, as long as it's not Nikki Bella. Whoever that name is going to be. I'd rather they not go through the whole rigmarole of like a multi-person fiasco. And that name, whoever that name is going to be, is likely going to end up being the next women's champion, because I just don't think Stephanie needs the title right now. I think it would be a mistake to put the belt on her right now. Stephanie didn't even wrestle at all the entire month of August. Like, she's been a total non-factor on these shows. You got to build her up. You got to build her up, honestly. I mean, she won that Battle Royal at Evolution. She's been on the main roster for, I don't know what, 2 months, 3 months now? Not that long. She's barely been established. She's very popular, and everybody loves the Devil's Kiss, but she's not established enough. And she's somebody who could be a major player for them. You need to take your time so that first championship win really means something. I think a better position for her to be in would not be challenging for the Women's World Championship, but for her to be challenging Becky Lynch for the Intercontinental title. And I think that's exactly the kind of person that Becky should be working with and dropping the title to eventually. It's not Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella is from the past. I don't even know how Nikki Bella ended up with a women's Intercontinental title match when she's had one other match the entire year, one other singles match, and she's fighting for the championship here. That's a whole other story. Nikki Bella does not need to be a part of this at all. She should be under the learning tree. That's where she should be. Under the learning tree. Fuck that tree. Under the learning tree is where she should be. Stephanie Vaquer is the one who should be in that position. That's what I would do. And then I would eventually build up to her winning the IC title. Let her get a run with that, just like she had the North American title in NXT. And eventually you can build to her winning the World Championship next year. That's the kind of person that should be in this spot. That's the kind of person who would benefit from working with a Becky Lynch. Let that rub off on Stephanie, a big name, right, for her to be working with. And both really good. I think the two of them would probably have pretty incredible chemistry together. I mean, you don't know until they're in the ring together. But I just think someone like that should be in this position, not a Nikki Bella. Now, backstage, Jey Uso was selling the injured ribs from earlier. Adam Pearce walked in and wondered, are you going to be able to compete in the four-way match later? Jey insisted on wrestling in the main event because before Roman got carted off to the hospital, he told Jey, go out there and win that title back. So now he's all motivated to go out there and to win the World Championship back. After that, it was time for Sheamus and Rusev in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. Anything goes, pinfall or submission in the ring. Again, it's not false count anywhere. Pinfall or submission in the ring is the only way to win this match. Now, this is a good moment here, since I just got done talking about the women, and I'm about to talk about Sheamus. I just very briefly want to talk about a couple of videos that I saw on social media today. I saw Rhea Ripley tweet out what she did, talking about fans in France who swarmed her earlier today, and literally had her up against the door of her Uber as she was trying to get in her Uber to get to the arena or wherever it was that she was going. She wasn't on the show tonight, but she was there. And it was scary. It was scary because there was nobody there with her. There's no security. There's nobody from WWE. There's no other wrestlers there with her. She's all by herself. And she is swarmed by this group of people that are just obsessed with getting up in her face and taking selfies and sticking papers in her face for her to autograph. And it's just overwhelming. And then I saw video, it must have been in a mall, I don't know where they were, but Sheamus was also mobbed by a group of people to the point where there was a female fan in the group that was almost trampled over. And Sheamus had to like tell everybody, hey, back up. And he's like talking to the fan, are you okay? Are you okay? Again, very scary situation here because everybody is all up in their space. And there's nobody there, seemingly, to separate them from what I could tell. So this has been a recurring theme in other places as well. It's not like France is the only place where this has happened. This has happened in other places as well. And when it comes to the women in WWE, obviously there have been some very scary situations in the past, right? Sonya Deville, Roxanne Perez, Liv Morgan, everybody has had stalkers in different situations, even far more serious than this. But in situations like this, it's to the point now where I don't see how WWE cannot, especially for some of these top female names who are super popular on social media and have people who are just absolutely obsessed with them. It's to the point now where WWE and TKO need to very seriously consider, when they are in these places for these PLEs, having these talents escorted around by security. This is what it's come to now. Because at some point, something very bad is going to happen. And we'll be talking about this and having this conversation after the fact, after something bad has already happened. The whole point is to try to avoid that altogether and not get to a point where something really bad happens, because people just have no self-control. Part of it is that people get all swept up in celebrity. Oh my God, I can't believe Sheamus is right here and Rhea Ripley is over here, right? And they get all nervous and they get starstruck. And that's totally normal, but that's very different than getting up in someone's personal space or putting your hands on them and swarming them and stampeding them. You cannot do that. Like, I'm watching that video of Rhea Ripley by her car being swarmed by these absolute fucking losers. And I'm like, why in the world would you think that it is appropriate to conduct yourself in this way? Why? And it's not just kids. I mean, these are people that are old enough to where they should know better. Like, it can't be allowed to happen like that anymore. There's going to have to be somebody who steps in and says, okay, we need to have people escorting these women around when they are in these places, because it is a very dangerous situation. Or maybe come up with like a buddy system, you know, where you have some of the male talents hanging out with them. I don't know, but something has to happen here, because this is not the first time something like this has happened. And at least in the Sheamus video, Sheamus was there. He was able to kind of back people up and check on that person and make sure that fan was okay. But I'm telling you, there's going to come a point where something, you know, there won't be a Sheamus there. There was a video not that long ago in an airport. I think it might have been Rhea. And there was somebody who was hounding her, and Kevin Owens was there. Kevin Owens came over and just to check on her and said, "Are you okay?" And Rhea was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. This can't happen. Now, in this match, they had a makeshift bar that was set up at ringside, which I could certainly use after the last match we just talked about. They also had giant barrels of Irish whiskey at ringside. I'm shocked they weren't branded. They brand everything else. They brand the tables. I'm shocked they didn't have branding, Fireball whiskey branding on the side of the barrels. Shockingly, I know this is going to be a big surprise to some of you. But they brawled to start the match. And so we had here the action spilling outside very early. Sheamus ran Rusev into the ring post. Sheamus quickly grabbed a Slim Jim table. Rusev, though, ran Sheamus into the ring post and then grabbed a Slim Jim table of his own. And he set it up next to Sheamus's Slim Jim table. And after all of this, they took the action back in the ring. After all that, they left the tables out there, and the action spills into the ring. Rusev hit Sheamus with a kendo stick over and over and over again. Rusev then gave Sheamus the 10 beats. He pulled a turnbuckle pad off, ran into an Irish curse backbreaker, though. Sheamus grabbed the kendo stick and hit Rusev with it multiple times. And then he grabbed multiple chairs from underneath the ring. Sheamus missed Rusev with a chair shot, and Rusev hit a heel kick. Only got a 1 count out of it. Rusev grabbed a chair, and he started working Sheamus over with it. The two of them battled for possession of a chair. Rusev came away with it, but then promptly ran into a running knee strike. After that, Sheamus took his own move back, and he hit Rusev with the 10 beats. Rusev threw Sheamus over the makeshift bar that was set up outside the ring. Then he grabbed a bar stool. Sheamus, though, punched Rusev and gave Rusev 10 beats over the bar. He tried to leave through the crowd, Rusev did. Sheamus, though, stopped him and gave Rusev 10 beats with a shillelagh. Back inside the ring, Sheamus ran Rusev into the chair that Rusev had wedged earlier in between the ropes. And then Sheamus hit a Celtic cross, only for a 2 count. Sheamus set up for a brogue kick. Rusev rolled out to the floor wisely. Sheamus climbed up top. When he came down, though, on the floor, Rusev blasted him in the midsection with a kendo stick right across the ribs. Rusev dismantled the ring steps that were over by the bar and slammed Sheamus through the bar. I think it was a Uranagi through the bar. Back inside, Rusev locked in the accolade, but Sheamus slammed Rusev backwards onto a pile of chairs. The action spilled back outside, and the two of them fought on top of the whiskey barrels. Now, I don't know how tall the whiskey barrels were. They were tall enough that when they were standing on top of them, they were fairly high up there. So they're on top of the whiskey barrels. Rusev locks in the accolade to Sheamus on top of the barrels. And they got this great shot, like a faraway camera shot where you see all the fans in the background and you just see them there right on top of those barrels. It just was a really cool visual. So he had him in the accolade. Sheamus, though, worked out of it. And then he ended up hitting white noise off the barrels down through the two Slim Jim tables that were set up earlier in the match. And so they go crashing and burning through the two tables. Both men dragged themselves back into the ring. The crowd was very loud for them both. They were super into this match. Rusev grabbed the shillelagh, but when he turned around, Sheamus caught him with a brogue kick. And you're thinking, okay, that's it. Covers him, and he kicks out. And what made it so great is that the brogue kick, after all these years, is still one of the most protected moves in all of wrestling. Very, very few people kick out of the brogue kick. It's happened before, but it's not a regular, like John Cena's attitude adjustment, right? I mean, at some point, I've probably kicked out of the attitude adjustment. You've probably kicked out of the attitude adjustment, but you've never kicked out of a brogue kick before. So they made it out like a big deal that Rusev was able to kick out. Rusev came back and he cracked that shillelagh right across Sheamus's back, almost like a knockout shot. He shoots the half, he covers him. Sheamus kicks out at 2.9. And Rusev is beside himself. He's screaming. He can't believe it. He's just incredibly frustrated. So he goes for the accolade, but he's using the shillelagh across Sheamus's mouth. It's like in his mouth, and he's pulling back on it. And what ends up happening is Rusev falls backwards. Now, I thought they were about to do a spot where Sheamus falls backwards and pins Rusev. Rusev's shoulders were not down. His back was down, but not his shoulders. But he still had the move locked in, and he had that bar across Sheamus's mouth. So picture when Edge used to break the bottom piece off of a chair and place the bar in someone's mouth. He did it to Roman Reigns, like in a crossface. That's basically what he was doing. Sheamus, he's got his legs around Sheamus. Sheamus ain't going nowhere. You know, he's locked in this hold. And finally, Sheamus taps out. Rusev wins the match. And they claimed on commentary, Michael Cole did, that that is only the second time in Sheamus's entire career that he has tapped out. Not passed out, but tapped out. The first time that Sheamus ever tapped out in a match was actually back in the Thunderdome era. And he tapped out in the Hurt Lock to Bobby Lashley, which honestly, in and of itself, is shocking to me that even in 2021, Sheamus had been doing this for so long, well over a decade. And it was only 4 years ago that he tapped out for the first time. So this is only the second time that he's ever tapped out in a match. Doing a real solid for his friend, because Rusev is like one of his best friends. So he's got no issue putting this guy over in the strongest way possible. And it really doesn't get any stronger than that. Easily the match of the night up until this point, and the best of their entire series together. I'm happy they gave these two a PLE spot. I'm really happy they gave them a PLE spot now, because this ended up being one of the best things on the entire show. The crowd was quiet for a while when this was over, just because it took a while for them to start to get back up. I mean, once Cena came out, obviously they were. But it was good that they had that gap in between the two matches, because I'm sure they needed a little come down here. But this was as fun as you could expect it to be. As when it comes to these WWE weapons matches, you kind of know what to expect. So they made the most of it. You know, I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought the visual of the accolade on top of the whiskey barrels was really cool. Sheamus always delivers in these situations. Rusev needed this because Rusev has not had that one standout match since coming back to WWE. And he's been back for several months now. So he really needed, I think, a match like this. Sheamus was able to give it to him. The win means more for him than it would for Sheamus because Rusev really needed something. The only question now is, okay, he won. Do they have some big push in mind for him? I don't know. You know, the two champions on the brand are both heels. So I don't think that's in his immediate future. So where do you go from here with him? I mean, you could feud him with a big name like a Jey Uso or someone like that, but there's got to be something in mind. Otherwise, this goes to waste and it doesn't mean anything. Like a win over Sheamus in a PLE match like this and tapping him out should have value. It should mean something, but only if you can follow up with something meaningful. That's going to be up to Paul Levesque and what he has planned for this guy. So I certainly hope that they have some plan in mind for him coming out of this. Sheamus continues to be basically, you know, a gatekeeper on the Raw brand. Hopefully he will have his story at some point for the IC title. That's still the biggest story that they have not done with him yet. They've kind of danced around it and what the title means to him, but he still has yet to win the Intercontinental Championship. So hopefully at some point he will get his story. As far as what Rusev's next story is, we'll have to wait until Monday and see. But he needs to be on that show Monday night. And they have to give us some indication of what's coming next for him. Now, on commentary, Wade Barrett mentioned that there was a list recently in the New York Times, technically The Athletic, but I think the Times owns The Athletic. But it was a list of the 25 most impactful play-by-play voices in TV history in the 21st century. And he put over Michael Cole. Michael Cole, just to clarify here, is not one of the 25 names on that list. He is one of the basically honorable mentions on that list. And what really struck me is that it wasn't just Michael Cole. Now, I should mention Joe Tessitore is on the top 25 list, I believe, because he's a real sports voice. I heard him this weekend. He was doing college football. So Tessitore is on there. They mentioned that. But what really struck me is that it wasn't just that Michael Cole was casually mentioned by the author as like an honorable mention. It was Jim Ross and Michael Cole. And they never mentioned Jim Ross. And I understand that Jim Ross doesn't work for WWE right now. And he hasn't been there in many years. Like, I understand that. But his voice is so, and will always be, synonymous with WWE. Like, his most famous calls, which are some of the most famous calls in wrestling history, are from when he worked for WWE. He was also mentioned in that, and to not even mention his name and just completely ignore that is so fucking petty to me. Like, that really, really stuck out to me here. I'm not saying that they had to, like, celebrate it, but, like, to just completely ignore the fact that he was mentioned alongside Michael Cole. They really were mentioned almost as like a tandem. Like, those were the two wrestling names, you know, like on the list. I just thought that was so fucking petty. But good for Michael Cole. I mean, look, Michael Cole has been doing this for a very long time, and kudos to him. He's been there for many, many years. He's gotten his flowers in recent years when people used to shit on him all the time, and he's very good at what he does. But I just thought, how can you just completely leave out Jim Ross when he's such an important part of the fabric of this company and some of the most famous calls in WWE of all time? And to not even mention the name is just ridiculous to me. But after this, we had what ended up being the best match on the entire show. We had John Cena, one-on-one against Logan Paul. Cena got the monster reaction that you would expect here for his final appearance, his final match ever in Paris. Alicia Taylor gave him the greatest of all time introduction that he gets every time he comes out on TV now because Mark Nash was not there. So Alicia Taylor did it. She was the ring announcer. Logan used his titanium fist to his advantage early in the match. Cena fought back. He did the weakest looking 10 corner punches that you will ever see. My God. Oh my goodness. Cena tried a monkey flip. Paul landed on his feet, booted Cena. Logan came off the middle rope with a blockbuster and then a delayed vertical suplex. He was holding, I would say he was holding Cena up there for a good 5 or 6 seconds. I mean, he's lost some mass over the years, but Cena is no small man. So he dropped him on the suplex, only for a 2 count. Logan hit a leaping European uppercut in the corner. And shockingly, I was not expecting this. Michael Cole described it as Cesaro-like. I was like, come again? I was not expecting a Cesaro mention here on this show, especially in the same week that Cesaro was main eventing the other show. It was very Cesaro-like. Cena landed a series of shoulder tackles and connected with a 5-knuckle shuffle. Cena lifted Paul. Logan, though, worked out of it. He went to the apron. And he followed with his version of the buckshot lariat for a 2 count. You know, they were referring to it as the snapshot lariat. And there was no mention of that here. So I don't know if they just forgot that they had given it a name or if the name's already been dropped. I mean, everyone's going to call it a buckshot anyway. But yeah, there was no mention of it being a snapshot lariat anymore. Guess the name didn't stick. Paul went for his Paul from Grace frog splash. Cena got the knees up, and then he hit an attitude adjustment for a near fall. Cena went for another one. Logan countered into an octopus hold, and we got an Antonio Inoki mention here. Cena countered. He sank in an STFU. I believe he called it by that name. Paul got to the ropes, so we got the rope break. Cena followed up with a tornado DDT that earned him a near fall. Logan went for the knockout shot. Cena moved, though, and delivered a shoulder tackle. Logan came back and caught Cena with a zigzag for a 2 count. Paul went for his version of a buckshot again. Cena, though, caught him and planted him with a Baron Corbin-esque end of days. And poor Baron Corbin. You know, we had Michael Cole refer to the uppercut before as Cesaro-like. And then when Logan hit the zigzag, they mentioned Dolph Ziggler. Cena hits the end of days. No mention of end of days. No mention of Baron Corbin. Poor Bishop Dyer. Not even worthy of a mention. Wade Barrett called it I think it was like a variation of a flatliner. Only for a near fall. You talk about protected moves. I mentioned the bro kick a little while ago. The end of days is one of the most protected moves ever in WWE. I think only one person, maybe someone after did, and I just don't remember. To my recollection, Drew McIntyre may well be the only person to ever kick out of an end of days. And if somebody kicked out after that, there weren't very many who did. That was at WrestleMania a few years ago. But I remember Corbin mentioning that Undertaker, I think, is the one who may have given him that advice where protect your finisher. You know, protect your finish and don't let people just kick out, which is true. I wish more people would take that advice. But that is still one of the more protected finishing moves that a wrestler has used ever in WWE is the end of days. Cena lifted Paul, but Logan worked out of it, went to the top rope where he landed a swanton bomb and then followed that with a standing moonsault for a 2 count. Logan hit another running uppercut. Paul went for another one. He missed, and Cena slammed him. Logan came up bleeding from the nose. Then we had, boy, you want to tell that John Cena had his working shoes on here. He hit an angel's wings. I thought he was going for a pedigree at first. He did the double underhook, and he got Logan up, and he held him there, and then dropped him face first. So we had John Cena doing the Christopher Daniels angel's wings. Cena then ran at Logan. Logan countered into a pop-up uppercut. Again, Cesaro-like, but it didn't quite connect the way he wanted it to. Yeah, he caught Cena like in the chest, not really in the face. Logan pulled the shoulder tackle combo, or pulled off the shoulder tackle combo that Cena usually does, set up for a 5-knuckle shuffle. Logan ran the ropes. Cena, though, popped up and grabbed him and delivered an attitude adjustment, which was only good for a near fall. Logan kicks out. Cena hit a standing Rana and then a code red for a near fall. And for the 5,000th time in the match, or at least it felt that way, John Cena lifted Logan for an attitude adjustment. Logan wiggled free, hit Cena with his knockout punch. It was not enough, though. Cena kicked out. Logan went to the top. He connected with the Paul from Grace, quickly hauled ass to the opposite corner, and Cena rolled closer to that corner to accommodate him, and Logan went up. He went for a second Paul from Grace, landed a second one. Cena kicked out at 2. Logan connected with a 5-knuckle shuffle. He lifted Cena. Cena countered out, And then he pulled off a Styles Clash. Again, only for a near fall. Cena went to the middle rope. He was going to try for an avalanche AA. Logan shoved him off, then hit a crossbody off the top. Cena caught him, rolled through, got up to his feet. He placed Logan on his shoulders and hit the attitude adjustment. He quickly transitioned into another AA attempt. Logan slipped out. At this point now, he totally is no-selling the attitude adjustment that he just got. He just got hit with an attitude adjustment, which is supposed to be Cena's finish. Cena went for a second one, right? Logan counters out of it. You would never know he just got hit with an AA. He threw a punch, I think. Cena ducked, picked him up, hit the second AA anyway. Apparently the second one knocked him loopy, not the first one. And Cena covers him, and he gets the 3 count. And John Cena wins. John Cena, as I said earlier, has now wrapped up the month of August. And in the month of August, he has capped it off by having the 2 best matches he has had all year. 37 minutes against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. Great match. Love that match. I mean, it blew away their WrestleMania match with a bazooka. Here, a few weeks later, he comes out here with Logan Paul, who does not have the level of experience that a Cody Rhodes does, and he has a 26-minute match. That wasn't quite the banger that the Cody Rhodes match was, but I still thought it was an excellent match. And again, imagine what we could have had. Imagine what we could have had if The Rock was not obsessed with turning Cody Rhodes heel, and Triple H came up with the idea to turn John Cena heel instead to get The Rock to calm down about Cody Rhodes going heel. Perhaps we would not have ended up in this situation. Better late than never. An excellent match with Cena playing his greatest hits. What he was doing here was incorporating even moves that he himself was not necessarily doing. But clearly they were incorporating moves from some of his past rivals, like Cesaro and Dolph Ziggler and AJ Styles, right? They were sprinkled all through. I don't know where that fucking Angel's wings came from. But clearly they were sprinkling in some moves from his past and past matches that he had. And he had his working shoes on here. He went from 5 moves of doom to a solid 9 here in this match. It was quite something to see. It was also a trademark John Cena match. You have countless attitude adjustments or attitude adjustment attempts and kickouts. It's been a staple of his matches now going back over a decade. Going back at least to the Rock matches. That's how far back that goes. So that's just been a staple. And the spot calling and stuff. If you watch for it, it's all right there. That's always been a staple of these John Cena matches. It doesn't take away from the quality, though, of this one here. Crowd was hot for most of it. They would randomly break out into song and dance, and they were going nuts for a lot of the near falls, and there were a lot of them here. But the atmosphere really did help play a role in this match. Logan more than held out his end of the bargain. Logan Paul is very good. Logan Paul is very athletic. There's things he can do in these matches that John Cena simply cannot do. There's things that he can do in these matches that John Cena couldn't do 10 or 15 years ago. So he's very good at that. But, he was where he needed to be for some of the key spots. There were really no moments that stand out to me on his part where he screwed something up or brought the match down in some way. He worked with Cena, and I thought the two of them worked very well together. Now, when the match was over, Cena went over to the young fan from Brussels. He's been on all these shows. The young fan, the kid from Brussels back in March, when he heeled on that kid in the crowd in his first heel promo, that kid was on SmackDown on Friday in Lyon, France. And Cena went over to him. Now, I talked about this in my SmackDown review. The kid had his face buried in his phone. Cena is right in front of him. He's got his arm around him. Cena's staring him in the face. And this kid is probably just frantically like, I got to get to the camera app. Like, dude, look up. John Cena is right here. You're on live TV, bro. So they had that moment because Cena went into the crowd to prove to Logan Paul that, we all have a bad day. And he wanted to go over to the kid and personally apologize to him and give him a hug. So that kid was back again on this show. And Cena knew exactly where he was. He was right there in the front row, and Cena went over to him. And again, this time the kid had no phone in his hand. The kid was enjoying the moment and looking right into the camera. And it was a nice moment. But again, I sit here and I wonder, Who is this kid related to? Which employee that works for WWE is this kid related to? I must know. A wholly planted fan. I must know the answer to this question. But good for him. Then he went over, Cena did, and he kissed his wife, Shay. He went over and hugged Jelly Roll and Post Malone. And then he got back into the ring one final time to celebrate. So it was a nice moment there at the end. I'm glad he won. I was a little worried they might give it to Logan, just because I don't really want to see Cena just lose and put everybody over for the rest of this run. When you put everybody over, you get nobody over. So he should lose his final. I do think he should lose his final match. I mean, we'll see who they put him in the ring with in that final match. But I think he, after losing the title, get back to his winning ways for a little bit. Obviously, he's going to be wrestling Brock at WrestlePalooza. And I don't know if Brock is just back for the Cena match this year and they're going to hold off for his next program and we don't see him again until next year, or if he's back as full-time as Brock can be. If Brock is back, we still don't know. Brock was not on this show. Brock was never rumored for this show. There was a rumor online about Brock being spotted in Paris. That was bullshit. That was a photo from Canada recently. Brock Lesnar is not scheduled to be back on SmackDown until September 12th. September 12th, they're going to be in Norfolk, Virginia. So we have one SmackDown between now and then. That's the one this coming Friday. I would imagine that's when Nick Aldis will make the announcement. Do not expect to see Brock back on TV until September 12th. He is scheduled for September 12th and September 19th. And that would then lead into September 20th, which is WrestlePalooza. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what the explanation is of Brock being back. When and if we get to hear from him. I thought we were going to get an explanation for why he attacked Cody Rhodes when he feuded with Cody, and we never got one. So I'm not going to assume that we're going to get anything. It may just be that Brock shows up and gives a couple of F5s, and that's about it. But it sure would be nice to get some sort of explanation for why now. But don't expect to see him for a couple more weeks. Jackie Redmond was shown outside Seth Rollins' locker room. Rollins walked out, and Redmond brought up the fact that Rollins is without his crew. And Seth said, he's always he's always got Brie mode. Hey, at least it wasn't Brie Bella with the big reveal at the end of the show. How fucking awful would that have been? That would have been terrible. But Seth said he's always 2 steps ahead. The world thinks that he's at a disadvantage tonight, but he asked Jackie if she remembered who won the main event of WrestleMania. Rollins said that he's never needed anybody, and he is a multi-time world champion. He's the greatest in-ring performer in the history of the industry, he said. Rollins said he will remind the world why he is a visionary. Said that if he can't keep the title by himself, then he does not deserve to be the champion. And Michael Cole, back at ringside, reminded everybody that Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns are both in the hospital. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are barred from the building. They're not going to be part of this match. And this match was the main event. It was the 4-way match for the World Heavyweight Championship with Seth Rollins defending against CM Punk, against LA Knight, and against Jey Uso. And for all of the awful shit that we saw in those videos today about fans swarming Rhea Ripley and Sheamus and all that, on a happier note, to show that not all fans are dicks, there was a video yesterday that I saw of LA Knight in a playground, I guess, somewhere in France, in Paris, playing a game of pickup basketball with some fans. He was just having a basketball game. Now imagine if he would have gotten injured during that game. That would have been terrible. But no, he was just hanging out with some fans and playing basketball. I was like, okay, that's cool. See, that's a cool moment. We need more shit like that. So anyway, it was LA Knight coming out after Jey Uso, who came out first through the crowd. Then it was CM Punk, and then the champion entered last. All 4 men, they were sizing each other up. Punk kicked Jey out of the ring as payback from what happened on Raw. Rollins bailed out of the ring. He left Knight and Punk alone. Knight got the better of their exchange. Rollins, though, slipped back in to take advantage. Jey and Knight, they took turns punching Rollins. Also, the fans can go back and forth and chant yeet and yeah. Or is it yeah and yeet? I don't know. whichever order you want to put them in. Rollins found himself surrounded by the babyfaces, so they all put the boots to him. Of course, Punk and Knight, they couldn't get along because each man wanted to get their hands on Seth Rollins. Jay talked them into working together, so they all took turns hitting spots on Rollins. Jay and Punk, they decided to yeet. Knight, though, thought they should focus and get a table. So Punk gave Jay a shove and told him to get the tables, doing his best Bubba Ray Dudley impression. Jay did help Punk get a table before then super kicking him. Jay also super kicked Knight before going after Rollins in the crowd. They all wound up back in the ring, traded spots until Rollins hit Punk with a pedigree. Rollins hit Knight with a buckle bomb for 2, and Jay with a frog splash for another near fall. Then it was Knight's time to shine, and he hit moves on all 3 men. It was Punk's turn next. He got to do a Tower of Doom spot. He brought down LA Knight and Jey Uso off the top. Moments later, Knight spotted Punk on the apron. And Punk, I think he was looking, I don't know if he was looking down at somebody on the ground or looking into the crowd, but he's on the apron and he's got his back turned. And he just can't help himself. So Knight rushes over and he knocks CM Punk off the apron. And Punk, there's a Slim Jim table on the outside. Punk falls off the apron. He lands on the Slim Jim table, but he kind of like bounces off of it. The table breaks. I don't know what these fucking tables are made of. Whatever it is, it's the exact opposite of these new announce desks. So the table broke right down the middle. But again, it was more like Punk kind of bounced off of it and then he landed on the floor. Basically the same thing Punk had done to LA Knight on Raw. And Knight shrugged it off, shrugged his shoulders, just like Punk did to him. Hit Rollins with a BFT. Jay broke up the cover. Knight repeatedly bounced Jay's head off the announce table before doing the same to Seth Rollins. Knight then placed Rollins on top of the French announce desk, and he looks up like he's Logan Paul. He's going to go to the top rope. And he's significantly older than Logan Paul, but damn it, he's going up top. So he climbs up to the top rope. And Jey Uso briefly gets up on the apron to try to stop him. Knight kicks him away, but that momentary distraction gives Seth Rollins all the time he needs to roll off the desk just as LA Knight comes flying off with this diving elbow drop. And he took a wicked bump through the announce desk. It was a rough bump. It was honestly the biggest bump of the entire match. And LA Knight just crashed and burned through that announce table. And that was pretty much it for LA Knight in this match. He did not have another offensive move for the rest of this match. Jay went for a spear on Seth, but as he flew in, Rollins kind of jumped up and grabbed him in a pedigree position and dropped him with a pedigree, covered him. Jay kicked out. Jay managed to make a comeback. He hit an Uso splash. Punk, though, broke up the cover with an elbow drop. Punk hit Jay with a GTS. As he covered Jey Uso, though, here comes Seth. He flies in with a stomp, and he stomps on Punk's head, goes for the pin, only gets a near fall out of it. Rollins begins screaming at Punk about, "I hate you. I hate your family." Rollins then hit curb stomps to Jay. He went over to where LA Knight was laying in the rubble of the table on all fours, hit a stomp on him. Not that he was getting back into the match anyway, but now you knew he was done for the night. So that was it for LA Knight. Back inside, Rollins placed Punk's head in between a chair, and he goes for a stomp. Punk, though, avoids it, and he manages to hit a GTS. And Rollins falls backwards into the ropes, bounces off the ropes, right back onto Punk's shoulders. And Punk is going to set up for one more go to sleep. And he's taking his time. And the camera is kind of tight on CM Punk. And I'm thinking, okay, there might well be a new member. There might be a fourth member of the Vision here coming out. Who's it going to be? Who from NXT maybe? Who's it going to be? Who's coming out here? And Punk is standing there and he's looking straight ahead and he's talking shit. And I'm like, just do the fucking move, bro. But then you see somebody roll into the ring, cloaked in all black, like an all black hoodie with a hood. Can't really see who it is. And this person delivers a low blow to CM Punk. And then they reveal themselves to be Becky Lynch. Rollins then stomps Punk's head onto the chair and he pins him to retain the World Heavyweight Championship 25 minutes into this match, actually just shy of the length of the John Cena Logan Paul match. Rollins and Becky then kiss, and they celebrate their victory as the show goes off the air. Well, at least LA Knight did not take the losing fall. I thought Knight was going to take the losing fall. Other people thought that Jey Uso was going to take the losing fall. I didn't think it would be Punk, just because Punk already got pinned at SummerSlam this month. But they went with CM Punk. So at least LA Knight got spared. He lost on Raw Monday night. It would have been fucking terrible if he would have come out here and got pinned again. I didn't expect him to win the championship, but at least don't let the guy take the losing fall again. Punk takes another L from Seth Rollins, which at this point, it just feels inevitable that he's going to be the one to beat Rollins for the world champion. It just feels that way, right? And maybe it doesn't have to be Rollins, but it is inevitable at this point that this man is going to have to get his payoff from all of these screw jobs and all of these losses. It probably will come at WrestleMania. The match itself, some people might have this as their match of the show or one of the best matches on the show. The match was okay. I was not a big fan of it. It didn't do anything for me. I'm sorry. Especially for like a big PLE main event. The crowd was quiet for large portions of it too. So there were definitely parts of this match that the crowd sounded kind of bored by. And it being the main event, that's not obviously a great thing. It just never felt like it got out of first gear for most of it. It really should have been just Rollins against Punk, if we're being honest here. Especially if Punk was going to be the one to take the losing fall anyway. That's what it should have been. Should have just gone ahead and just done Seth Rollins against CM Punk and been done with it. But they felt compelled to throw the other two guys into it. I like the pairing of Becky and Seth on TV. Obviously, they make a good pair off TV. The last time we saw them as an on-screen pairing, it was an absolute disaster. And it actually turned a lot of fans against them. The way that Vince did it as babyfaces, it was so forced, it was so corny, it just didn't work. This is different. Now they're heels. And I think that Becky, if she were to become a regular part of this faction, when I say regular, I mean just a regular member going forward. As long as the vision is a thing, she should be part of the group. I like that idea. I would be okay with that. I think I would add Becky Lynch as a permanent member of this group. Whether she stays a permanent member or not remains to be seen. But one thing is very clear. When Punk came out to the ring, it was audible. He mentioned April and he mentioned Larry, right? I'm doing this for you. I'm bringing the gold home. And then towards the end of the match, when Seth was just completely frustrated and he stomped him and Punk kicked out and he couldn't beat this guy, he starts going off about, I hate you and I hate your family. And then the very next thing we see is Seth's family, his wife, come out to save the day. And Punk ends up getting screwed yet again. As he was at WrestleMania, as he was at SummerSlam, fucked over again by Seth Rollins. And without telling you, they basically want you to believe that this is going to pave the way for the return of AJ Lee. Because how could it not? How could any rational person watching this not think, hey, maybe this means that AJ Lee is coming back? So if ever there was a time where it felt like, holy shit, this might really happen, because AJ Lee has a lot of fans out there who've been dying to see her come back to WWE for a very long time. So it may not mean something to you, or it might, but even if it doesn't mean something to you, if she was to come back, if they hit her music and she was to come back, that would be a big fucking deal. And I don't think that they would tease it this much and do something that would make it so obvious in people's heads that, hey, we might actually get this without actually doing it. Because that would just be mean, okay? That would just be a mean thing to do. And it's one thing if AJ just doesn't want to come back. Up to this point, she hasn't wanted to come back, or else she would have been back by now. We would have seen her in the Royal Rumble one of these years. But to do it in the way they did it, it seems pretty obvious to me that there's a very good chance we're going to get her back. And then you could do a mixed tag match. You could do Seth and Becky against Punk and AJ. I don't know when. I mean, they got a PLE coming up in a few weeks, WrestlePalooza. Because I was thinking about this, like, Seth is going to win here. Who does he defend against next? Do you stick with Punk? How long are you going to do this for? I would get away from it for a while and then circle back around to it if that's the plan, let's say, for the Rumble or for WrestleMania. You can't just do Seth and Punk every fucking month for the rest of the year. So if not Punk, and they've already done Jey Uso, they've already done LA Knight, well, then who else, right? AJ Styles is fighting for the Intercontinental title. He's challenging Dom tomorrow for the championship, so it's not going to be him. There's no other obvious person. You know, Gunther's still out. Gunther's a heel anyway, but Gunther's out, right? He had that nasal injury or whatever it was. So it's not obvious to me who that next, person is going to be anyway. So, like, what match do you do with Seth? Well, maybe he doesn't defend the championship at all. Maybe that's how we get a tag team match. It would make sense. And it would be a very big attraction that they could put up. Because look, they're going to load up that first ESPN show. It's not just Brock and Cena. They're going to want to come up with as many attractions as they can. Wouldn't shock me if we find out on Raw tomorrow night that we're not going to get a new women's champion crowned until September 20th. They may put it off until then for all we know. So they're going to want to load that first ESPN show up as much as possible. Are we looking at a Brock Lesnar return and an AJ Lee return on the same show? Very possible. But I like the pairing. And look, Paul Heyman, if he's in the hospital, I don't think having Becky as one of the de facto mouthpieces of this new group is a bad idea. I know she got herself in some trouble on Monday with the Ozzy Osbourne comments. I mean, I wasn't offended by it. I didn't really see what the big deal was. I, by and large, like the work, that Becky has done since she's come back. So I'm in favor of adding her to the group. And we'll see what happens as far as the AJ Lee stuff is concerned. But for me, this was a 2-match show, not the main event. John Cena, Logan Paul, Sheamus, and Rusev. Those are the 2 best matches on the show. Everything else, to me, pretty average stuff. The Peacock era of PLEs ends with a pretty solid thumbs in the middle effort. If I had to classify it one way or the other, for me, it would be somewhere in the middle. Let's take a look at the Twitter poll, though. See what you guys think. Report card style, A, B, C, and D. What did you think of Clash in Paris? 26.5% thumbs. I'm still doing thumbs. 26.5% give it an A grade. 44% give it a B. 17% give it a C. And 12% give it a D. That is with 1,700 votes and count. Now, we have a poll in the YouTube chat. This is a thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down. So we got another 1,100 votes. So close to 3,000 votes total here. 49% thumbs up, 37% thumbs in the middle, 14% thumbs down. So those are your scores for Clash in Paris. There you go. There's Punk. Look at those hoop earrings that he has. It's tough, though. It really is. Like, whether he defends at WrestlePalooza or Crown Jewel, who is it against? Roman's gone for a while. Who does he defend that championship against? Who is the next obvious name in line for Seth Rollins? Assuming it's not Punk. I don't know. I don't know who that name is. Let's go through your super chats here. I see we're 8 out of 15 on the bonus goal in the chat. Oh, man. Clash in Paris. We're coming to the end very quickly of these international shows. We have a 2 p.m. start time Eastern for Raw tomorrow. Just be aware of that. I'll be live at 8. Just like I was tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern for the Raw review. But after that, we're back to normal. They're back on U.S. soil. So it'll be back to normal as far as the scheduling of these shows. It was both of them, too. It was WWE and AEW. They went international around the same time. First one that came in, first few super chats from our friend Dried Chicken Without Flavor. Says he was watching AEW Collision over Clash in Paris today. Says, by the way, FTR wanted all of the smoke with the Philly crowd. Old school heel heat. Becky Lynch tells everyone, "You're here. There's nothing I fear, and I know that my heart will go on." The Vision and Paul Heyman joins in and also tells everyone, "We'll stay forever this way. Safe in our heart." A little Celine Dion, I see. Really. A little Celine Dion for Terrible Dried Chicken. Did Knight, Punk, and Jay beat up Rollins? He asked before the main event even went on. They did, but not enough apparently, because they were still unable to win. Completely inept. They went after each other too much. And they softened each other up just enough for Seth Rollins to pull out the win. Never learned their lesson. Holiday 197 says, "Hey Solo, hope they give Balor another world title run in the next year or so. It's crazy that he never held the gold since his one-day reign in 2016. Well, people would say the same thing about Kevin Owens. Only reason Kevin Owens even had that run was because Balor got hurt. Do I think Balor's getting a world title run in the next year? I don't. Dry Chicken says, boy, he's just singing to himself. Becky Lynch told Seth Rollins, "'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man. Whenever you reach for me, I'm going to do all that I can." You need to come up with some questions, brother. That's what you need to do. Robbie H. LA Knight is the second winningest superstar in 2025. Hard to believe the way he is booked. Is that a real stat? He's the winningest superstar in 2025. He has nothing to show for it. Seth officially has his Stephanie McMahon Helmsley. They're going to call it the Man's Vision, I bet. The Man's Vision. I don't know. I mean, again, whatever they call it, they can call it, but I like the pairing. I like adding her to the faction full time. I'm for it. I'm okay with it. Dry Chicken says, "What do Puff Daddy and Pepe Le Pew have in common? Can't stop, won't stop. Pick one, French fries, French toast, or French kiss. French fries. Fuck everything else." Magnificent Matt says, "Have you seen any of these great HBO shows? 6 Feet Under, Entourage, or Eastbound and Down?" I've seen episodes of 6 Feet Under. I never watched the entire series. The other two I have not watched. None of them are as good, I'm sure.
I have one pair of skinny jeans, and I'm going to wear them every week
Hollywood
just to
Dave.
piss you off.
It's Hollywood Dave. None of them are as good as The Sopranos, though. Although I will say I have not seen Game of Thrones. I have not seen that one. Venom Kitetsu. Americano against Tonga Loa for the 24/7 title should main event WrestleMania. Would put butts in seats and really move the needle. More like sticking the needle in the arm is more like it. Arabian Night WWE is going to continue this never-ending Punk and Rollins feud until the Royal Rumble. You say the Royal Rumble. I say probably WrestleMania. Also, 5 months in and 7 PLEs, Aleister Black still has not been on one. Has his return been a bust? So far, yes, it has. I don't think that they're trying to bury him. I think that they probably will push him soon to something a little bit more, but so far, yes, it's been a bust. Bender McSimpson, whoever created the logo for this pay-per-view should be fired. How do you not have the Eiffel Tower as either the L or the A in Clash in Paris? They should have had you as the designer. I didn't like the overall artwork for this show to begin with. I know what they were going for, but I think it's some of the weakest they've had all year, honestly. I don't know. I just don't find it to be visually appealing. Corey Blake with the $10 super chat. Hey, Solomonster, awesome job as always. We all know Montez Ford has top singles written all over him, but I think monster heel version of Dawkins can work as well. What are your thoughts? I think that, I don't know about monster heel. I think heel version of Dawkins can work. He's not a top heel. He's not a top heel. But I think a heel version of Angelo Dawkins could work. Yes, I do. We got Prince Vegeta. They should have had Sheamus win that match. Rusev barely gets a reaction. His return has been a flop. Him and Aleister Black both. I hope Sheamus wins the IC title. Don't know if the H-Man will do it. The H-Man will do it. I think they're well aware of the fact that that's something that needs to happen at some point, but they're just going to take their time with it. I mean, that could be a WrestleMania moment. I don't see it happening soon, but it could be a WrestleMania 42, WrestleMania 43 moment. It'll happen. I have faith it'll happen. I mean, that story is just such a slam dunk. Such a layup. Bender says, Logan gave Cena his best match in years. It should have been 5 to 10 minutes shorter. I hate that they didn't mention Cena hitting the end of days. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the match with Cody more. I thought that was the better match. But it was still excellent. Still a great match. Jeremy Rose. In my New Day voice, thank God Nikki didn't win.
Thank God Nikki did not win.
Bender McSimpson. Also, let's go Phillies. Yes. Let's go into the wood chipper. I agree. Jeremy Rose says Nikki thinks she's the Hogan of women's wrestling in terms of popularizing it, trailblazing, or whatever term they like to use, but she has no impact then or now and needs to go away, please. So Jeremy is no fan of Nikki Bella. What about Brie? You a fan of Brie Bella? You a fan of Brie Cheese? Michael Games, WrestlePalooza or Survivor Series? Seth and Becky against Punk and AJ. Book it. Guaranteed. Feels like it. Feels like it, but I think they're going to want to load up that first ESPN show as much as possible. That would be one way to do it. Do you want to have attractions on that show? I mean, Cena Brock is already an attraction, you know, for some. Not for everybody. That would certainly be one that you could add to the lineup. Alexander with the $9.99. You would think all the shit that Roxanne went through with her stalker, the WWE would have had the girl surrounded by security. WWE should be held responsible if something bad happens. I just think they need to, you know, look very closely at what's been going on. And at least for certain people, take the necessary measures to protect them when they're on the road. For a company that is making money hand over fucking fist in the way that they are, making more money now than they've ever made before, they can afford it. Boomerang. With all that TKO money, there's no excuse giving their there you go. Giving their stars security detail everywhere from the airports to walking the streets like these big-time musicians get. You'll never see this with Beyonce. Yeah, or Taylor Swift. They mentioned her tonight too. They mentioned the fact that they topped the gate record in that building. They topped Taylor Swift last year. And everybody cheered. Yay. We did that. Little Baby Fire Panda, 35 months of membership. There is a cover of Bray's theme, Live in Fear, by Suplex Sound. Give it a listen. It's a very, very good. Can't believe it's been 2 years since Bray died. It has been it doesn't feel like 2 years, does it? But it has been 2 years. It's crazy. Alexander, on top of everything, Rhea admitted on Chris Van Vliet that she has anxiety with large crowds surrounding her not too long ago, and then this video happens. Yeah, I mean, they're tempting fate by not taking some sort of action. Rhea is truly one of the biggest stars in the entire company. I mean, there's no reason that there should not be some security detail with her at all times when she's just sort of out and about like that. Jack Davis, almost 4 hours for 6 matches. Thank God they don't do 10 to 12 like AEW. Yeah. Thank God for that. GMB. what fascinates you about a Tez Bianca heel pairing? I just think they both have a really good heel run in them, and putting them together as sort of this heel power couple, I think could work. I mean, I've been saying that for years. It's not like a new thing. I've said this before. I just think it could really, I think it could work. I think they would play off each other very well. And I think it could work. And if they do it and it doesn't, I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong, but I think it could work. Nash DTV, after last week's sound off, I checked out your Michael Jackson rant. Now you're going back in the vault, huh? You're going back a ways with that one. Your Michael Jackson rant, avoided for years as a big MJ fan. I don't agree with all points, but I found it quite fair. Yeah, I mean, you found it quite fair because it's less of a it's not really, it's kind of wrong, frankly, for people to call it a Michael Jackson rant. It's less a Michael Jackson rant and more a rant about the media coverage and the media circus around his death. That's really what it was about. Everyone says, oh, it's a Michael Jackson rant. It's really not. You actually listen to it. The real CSO2, to me, it's crazy they haven't named Logan's buckshot lariat the Paul shot lariat. It's right there. The Paul shot lariat. I'm sorry, brother. That's a terrible name. Sorry. Libido Bell, thank you for the 25. I was gifted a crochet squid from a beautiful coworker with a pink afro. She made it herself, spent 5 hours on it. Showed my gratitude. Didn't secure the digits. I hope I didn't fumble. I love this squid. Well, maybe she's playing a game with you. Maybe she's playing a squid game. Very possible. I'm just saying. Base bearish Sheamus gave Rusev 10 beats. His back was all beat. Was beat red. He posted a picture online of the aftermath. He was all bruised up. Dry Chicken coming in with another super chat here. If AJ Lee declines the return, WWE will be pretty tempted to get Nikki Bella involved in the Punk Rollins feud since Becky Lynch is involved. That is a terrible idea that I hope you did not just will into existence. Man, that's, you know, that is very possible. And that would be awful. That would be awful. We need to be done with the Becky Lynch and the Nikki Bella stuff. You want to get one stipulation match out of it on TV, be my guest. And then that needs to be the end of it. Base Beer is God of Seduction. Who wins in a shoot? Raja Jackson or Psycho Sid? Psycho Sid. Sid has his squeegee, so I think he'll be okay. Uffman Entertainment, happy 33rd anniversary to I'm Fooked, Brett. I'm Fooked. Yes, SummerSlam 1992. Wembley Stadium. Base Beerus, hey Matt Clark, welcome to the channel. Got a bunch of new subs tonight, welcome. Base Beerus says, Slim Bronson Reed. Yeah, ever since he came back, he's noticeably slimmed down. Good for him. It's going to be better for that ankle. You know, he has said the ankle is never going to be 100% again. He will never have full mobility in the ankle that he broke. And he says he's in pain every day. But when he's out there in the ring, he kind of forgets about it. Gets in that mindset, he gets in the zone, and it hasn't affected his performance in ring. But yeah, that ankle that he broke coming off the top of the cage in War Games, it'll never be the same again. Prince Vegeta with 22 months of membership says, apparently there has been no world champions in WWE born in the 90s ever. Who do you think will be the first one? Not saying Braun Breaker. Well, I was going to say Braun Breaker, so there you go. You can't say not Braun Breaker. You can't take away answers. The answer is Braun Breaker. Well, I don't even know when half these people were even born, like Roxanne Perez. Okay? When was Roxanne Perez born? Was she born in the early 2000s or was she born? She probably born in the early 2000s, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. Libido Bell, what's Jesse Sailor Moonstar doing in the Impact Zone? I have no idea who that is. Or rather, I have no idea who that's in reference to. Venom Kitetsu, Canker. Oh my goodness. She's back again. More Bellas. More Bellas. Venom Kitetsu says he has a canker sore on his left tonsil. Send help and silver nitrate. I got a pair of scissors here. I can cut it out for you if you want. Mystic J44, fans want her back, wrestlers want her back, even her husband wants her back. It feels like the only person that doesn't want AJ back is AJ herself. Well, unfortunately for all the people who want her back, that's the only person whose opinion matters here. And if she doesn't want to come back, she ain't coming back. Frankly, I could see her looking at videos like Rhea Ripley being swarmed by loser fans outside and saying, I don't want to come back to that. Although I don't think Punk would allow that to happen. I think Punk would shield her from all the weirdos. I think she'd be okay. Thank you, Mystic J. Base Beer says, remember the fans who went after Seth and Bret? Yes, I do. I remember that fucking idiot who attacked Bret Hart at the Hall of Fame. I was actually sitting in Madison Square Garden watching the fucking G1 Supercard with New Japan and Ring of Honor, and I'm looking on my phone. I'm like, Bret Hart attacked. I felt like I was attacked. I was like, oh my God, what do I need to do here? Who do I need to go after? Brian Mahoney got a name for Seth and Becky if she's in the Seth Riders. I will never not call this faction that. Tragically unfashionable. Or tragically fashionable. Or tragically unfashionable. I think that works too. Alex with the 25. Brother Solo. Jericho, if Jericho does come back, would you be interested in a feud with Punk again? I thoroughly enjoyed their 2012 feud, which became super personal, but did you think their Mania 28 match under-delivered? Yeah, I mean, it's not a favorite of mine. I think it was just overshadowed by the main event and by the end of an era Hell in a Cell match. If I remember correctly, I think they had a rematch at the next show that was better. Same with Bryan and Sheamus. They had that 2 out of 3 falls match that was obviously much better than their 18-second match. Punk and Jericho again. Look, I think the promos could potentially be interesting, but all the really interesting stuff would just be, stuff that they probably wouldn't be allowed to say in reference to stuff that happened in some other company. So I'm not clamoring for it. I'm really not. At this point, I feel like Jericho needs to be in the ring with somebody who can assist in making him look as good as he possibly can. I don't think Punk is that person. Lavelle. Gilliard, will AJ's return be a one-off or one final run? We don't even know if she's coming back for sure. But if she is, I imagine it's probably for the purposes of this storyline, and beyond that, she might be in the Rumble. Do I think it's like a full-time run if she's back? No, I don't think it's any kind of like consistent run. But it's like once you make that first appearance, others will follow. So I could see her being in the Rumble, maybe having a WrestleMania match. Dry Chicken says Obafemi dethrones Seth Rollins. Now, I talked about Oba on the podcast and what I would do with him. I would not rush him into a world championship. I think that's a mistake. I told you what you need to do with Obafemi. Cameo Johnson with a $4.99 says, is there ways the WWE can better use all of their talent that they have on hand? It's plenty that don't have anything going on and are just never used. Yeah, it's called the creative team, doing a better job of rotating talent in and out and coming up with ideas for the talent that aren't doing anything. That's the easiest answer to your question. The answer is yes. But that's on the creative team. And Base Bear says, Undertaker beat Triple H at WrestleMania, each time with a different finisher. Well, their first match at WrestleMania 17, he used a last ride powerbomb. Their second match at 27, he beat him with Hell's Gate. At 28, he beat him with a tombstone. So, yes. All three of Undertaker's finishers, and he beat Triple H with each one of them. That is true. We are currently sitting at 569 likes. 9 out of 15 on the bonus goal, so we're only going to do the one round. But we didn't do Be the Booker the other day because I went early for SmackDown. It was an express review. It was in and out. But at least we're going to get the one round in here. So let's go ahead and Be the Booker Paris edition.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to Be the Booker.
Clash in Paris edition of Be the Booker. No stipulations. I don't know why that's open. No stipulations tonight. That's only for the bonus rounds. All right. Feel like we haven't done this in several days. Look at this. Robert needs his fix. He needs his fix. He's got that vein. It's open. He wants that Be the Booker injected. Let's do it. Choose 2 single stars to form a makeshift team. So we're going to have to make a fake team here. We need real teams. We got to make a makeshift team. Okay. And that's what we have to do because that's what the stipulation. And here I just said we're not going to have stipulations. The first thing we land on is a stipulation. Okay. Team number 1, member number 1, Eddie Guerrero, Latino Heat. And teaming with Eddie Guerrero will be Hook. Hook and Eddie Guerrero are officially a tag team. As an interesting team. I don't quite know what to make of that team. That could work. Just don't come out to Hook's new shitty music, please. Come out to Eddie's music, please. Eddie Guerrero and Hook are going to take on the Nasty Boys. You know what? I am going to pick a stipulation for this. I feel like this match needs a stipulation. I don't know. I just feel that way. It's going to be a Molotov cocktail match. I'd pay money to see that. Eddie Guerrero and the Nasty Boys in a Molotov cocktail match. That is a real stipulation, by the way, from everyone's favorite game, AEW Fight Forever. Is there anybody in the lobby like actually playing Fight Forever anymore? I wonder how many people are actually left playing the game. Is it in the double digits? Or is it in single digits? We begin with Lana. Happy Lana Day, everybody. I know what I'm pushing. Lana against the former Impact Knockouts champion, Mickie James. And I do love me some Mickie James, but this match was doomed from the start. Sorry, Mickie. Good old hardcore country. All right, our main event of the evening. This is how we end. Be the Booker. Ed says there are 6 people playing Fight Forever on Steam right now. 6 people. So we have, how many more people do we have? We have about 1,200 plus more than AEW has on Steam playing the game. All right, so here we go. It is main event time. We have The Undertaker. Purple glove Undertaker. You got to specify the time period of the Undertaker that you're talking about. You have Gray Glove Undertaker. You have Purple Glove Undertaker. You have Ministry Undertaker. You have American Badass Undertaker. You have Big Evil Undertaker. Then you had some hybrid mix of the two. You had the fake Undertaker. The Undertaker against Yokozuna. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. The Undertaker-Yokozuna feud and their matches are a guilty pleasure of mine. Now, funny enough, Undertaker and Yokozuna actually had 2 casket matches. And I'm going to go and do some stipulations here and see if we might actually be able to land on casket match. Undertaker and Yokozuna in a lumberjack match. All right, I'll still give it the bell. Although a lumberjack match is not one of my favorite stipulations. Honestly, that second casket match kind of turned into a lumberjack match. If all the lumberjacks were on Yokozuna's side. Had about 10 different guys out there stuffing them inside that casket. But anyway, there you go. There's your Be the Booker, everybody. Base Beerus says Mohawk Undertaker. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's among the worst periods of The Undertaker, was Mohawk Taker. Now we have LFG Undertaker. Now we have Undertaker backstage assisting at Triple Mania Undertaker. We have Lucha Taker. That's his latest incarnation. Chuck Norris was there. Yeah, Chuck Norris was there. That was the second casket match. Survivor Series 94. He kicked Jeff Jarrett right in the face. Jeff Jarrett took a bump for Chuck Norris. Yeah, if people wanted to see an Undertaker and Sting match, maybe they got. What if they would have gotten Undertaker against Vato Sting? Would people have wanted to see Vato Sting against the Undertaker? Base Beer says, could the Lumberjacks get Yoko in the ring? Get him in the ring? Yeah, that's a tough question. I don't know. If he ends up outside, the whole point of the Lumberjacks is to throw people right back in the ring. They might not be able to get him back in the ring. Maze the Great, channel member for 49 months. Solo, you being a Mets fan, I'm sure you've heard Get Metsmerized, and it's cringly, charming, and sound like somebody came up with that on drugs. Yeah, I think I heard it once, and I don't have to hear it ever again. I'm more a fan of the old school Mets song from the 80s. That's more my jam. The less said about the Mets right now, the better. Just lost most of their games to the fucking Marlins. They scored 19 runs in one game, and they couldn't score hardly anything for the rest of the series. It's like their entire quota of runs they wasted in one game. So they had nothing left after that. They had nothing left. It's just awful. But at least they'll get a wild card spot. What was Yoko's heaviest weight while wrestling? While he was active, I think he was active right until the very end. So, I mean, the heaviest that I heard of him being was about 804. So if he wasn't 800, he was definitely somewhere in that 700 range. But a lot of state athletic commissions, like in New York, just wouldn't allow him to wrestle because how could you? He was such a liability. I mean, his weight was just out of control. And again, the heart can only support so much. You know, there's just a point in which the heart simply cannot function. Yeah, I mean, you've heard the stories of WWE sending him and Vader to a fat camp, basically, or it's like a weight loss center, but they called it like a fat camp. And they would check in with him, and he'd be like, yeah, I'm losing weight. I lost 100 pounds. They're like, oh, that's great. And they found out like he was completely just kayfabing him, just lying. He didn't lose anything. In fact, they caught him and Vader smuggling or having people for them smuggle fried chicken into the clinic so they could have fried chicken every night. It's like they didn't lose anything. They actually gained weight. They went to the Duke Weight Loss Center to lose weight, and they actually came out of it heavier than they were when they went in. You know, I mean, these are grown adults. You can only do so much. You can lead the horse to water. You can't force it to drink. If they don't want to lose the weight and put the work in, then they're not going to. But then you're going to have a premature death. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. People need to make their own decisions. The Winston Slip. Which matches made the best use of the gimmick? What matches made the best use of the gimmick? I mean, pick your favorite stipulation matches, right? You just answered your own question. You know, WWE always had the escape out over the top of the cage or through the door rule. To me, Brett and Owen made the best use of it. I mean, there's been so many ladder matches. I mean, there's so many choices. There's been a lot of great ladder matches. So, I mean, take your pick. I don't really have like a favorite lumberjack match. Honestly, you know, when it comes to stuff like Falls Count Anywhere, I think those hardcore 24/7 matches back in the Attitude Era, they made the most of that stipulation. Like when Al Snow and Bob Holly wrestled out of the arena into the Mississippi River. I mean, how do you not love that? Or when Al Snow and the Big Boss Man, SummerSlam. I want to say SummerSlam 99. Brawled out of the building, into the street, across the street, into oncoming traffic, there was like a bar, restaurant across the street. They went and brawled in there. That's what a Falls Count Anywhere match should be. You get a Falls Count Anywhere match these days, they're fucking lame. They don't take full advantage of the stipulation. They don't have fun with it. Everything is just very sanitized, and why even bother? Why even bother having the stipulation if you're not going to have fun with it? Abyssal Zones. If late 2000s Undertaker could wrestle the current roster, who would you want to see him work with? Gunther, Jacob Fatu, and Logan come to mind. Logan Paul would be a great opponent for him. Logan Paul would be bumping all over the place for him. Undertaker would love to work with Gunther. He has said that. That could have been a WrestleMania match. So Undertaker and Gunther, Undertaker and Jacob Fatu would be... I mean, Undertaker loved working with the Samoans anyway. Look, Undertaker and Umaga would have been a great match. It's kind of surprising we never got an Undertaker-Umaga program. I think those two would have worked really well together. But yeah, Gunther, Jacob Fatu, Logan Paul, Seth Rollins. A proper match with AJ Styles, I think, would have been fun. The Boneyard match was fun, but they never had a real match inside a wrestling ring. Didn't they wrestle in a ball pit? Yeah, that was when Crash Holly was the 24/7 champ. The guys would just follow him everywhere, and they wrestled in a place called Funtime USA here in Brooklyn. It's not there anymore. There's a storage facility there now. But there used to be this. Funtime USA was two levels. And they had the hammer to test your strength. They had the bumper cars. Upstairs is where all the arcades were. They had tons of arcades and skee ball. And there was a giant super slide that connected the top floor to the bottom floor. I rode that slide many times. And so when you watch that segment back from SmackDown where the Headbangers are chasing him through Funtime USA, that's where they start. Crash is playing the arcades. The Headbangers attack him. Crash goes down the super slide, and the ball pit is right there. So, yeah, they chased him through the airport. I think Crash escaped through the baggage, the baggage machine. That was fun. I missed that. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with me here on a Sunday night for the final PLE here for the month of August. We do have a full podcast up, almost 2 hours long, episode 927, with a lot of content in there. If you missed it, go back and check that out. And the next time I'm with you live is in less than 24 hours. Even though it's Labor Day, everybody should be off work. I'll be working. We got Raw at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I will be going live at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, a little earlier than usual for the Raw post-show.
I am the Lord.
Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. Hold on a second. I had to find my chainsaw. I lost my chainsaw there for a second. Base Beerus with a learning tree. $12 super chat. How did you feel when Undertaker lost to Great Khali and Kozlov on SmackDown? I remember being flabbergasted. Also, I thought the Starry Night theme was tacky. It's so overdone. Yeah, I mean, when he lost to Khali, I really didn't give a shit. When he lost to Kozlov, I gave less of a shit. Kozlov was just someone who I knew was never going to amount to anything. Like, I just knew. There was nothing there. So they wasted a clean Undertaker pinfall win on somebody who had no real upward mobility in that company. And, of course, he went nowhere. Losing to Khali with the brain chop, like, that's what Vince McMahon loved. He loved those big, the big attractions, those big monster types. They were trying to make a monster out of Khali. He just wasn't that good. So, yeah, he got some big wins. He was World Heavyweight Champion briefly, but there's nothing there. Like, that's only going to get you so far. And once you've played that card, it's not like he's got a main event spot all locked up for years to come. You could tell that story of him being the monster that nobody can seem to overcome until somebody finally does. And when that happens and he gets beat and he's no longer unbeatable, there ain't nothing left to do with him except turn him into a comedy character and have him dance or do something silly and stupid, which is what they did. So how did I feel? It wasn't like I was such a big Undertaker fan that I was offended. I really didn't give a shit. Certainly wasn't something that I thought was a good thing. I didn't care about any of those guys. They meant nothing to me. Anyway, go enjoy your day off if you have one. And I will see you for the Raw post show tomorrow right here on YouTube. Hit that like button on your way out. Thank you for all the support. And we'll do it all over again tomorrow on September the 1st. Until then, take care, guys.